How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope, this time for February 15th through February 21st of 2021. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love every single one of you. I'm recording this actually on Sunday morning, so you're about to, literally, I'm going to post this right after I'm done recording it. So, happy Valentine's Day. You guys are all my Valentines, just so you guys aren't lonely. Just know that I'm here with you. Anyway, So, I actually tried recording this last night, but I felt awkward. I felt weird, like something, I don't know. I didn't feel right about it, but I opened it up by saying that this is kind of like the last crazy week, really I don't want to say for the year. We have, the end of the year is just packed full of crazy shit, but realistically, for like the rest of the year, this is as crazy as it kind of gets. We have 3 Saturn-Uranus squares this year, and one of them's this week. However, the other 2, yeah, they're going to be something else, but I think with this one, with all of the planets in Aquarius, this one's going to be a little bit more prevalent. This one's going to be a little bit more important. This one's just going to be, overall, just more effective and more of a bigger deal. But really, after this, things kind of die down, at least for a little while. That's not always, people can conflate that with like good or bad, and I think while all of this new stuff could be good for some people, it could be rough for other people. What I like to bring up with these big transits ending is that things really just kind of like calm down, and when it's kind of like intermission when you're watching a play, right? Like when you're, or I don't know who watches plays anymore, but like when you're, because there's no intermission at movies. When you're at a play though, and they have an intermission, basically, you're not engaged in the show. You get that minute to go and do your own thing, and I feel like that's what really the next couple of months are really going to be about. But we have to get through this week first. So let's go ahead and start off. Like I said, on this week, we really do start off Monday. I mean, like we just had the moon ingress into Aries on Sunday, but then on Monday we're gonna have the moon move farther along in Aries, and it is going to. Oh, do I have the wrong camera open? I have the wrong camera open right now. I don't know. Will it change? Okay. I'm gonna deal with it because I really don't know how to fix that at the moment. I don't know why it's actually none of my software isn't actually working. Hey, whatever, it's Mercury retrograde. Anyway, moon's gonna go into Aries, sextile Mercury, Jupiter. Mercury's still on Jupiter retrograde at this point. The moon's also gonna sextile Venus later on in the night. The big thing I really just wanted to say about Monday is the moon's in Aries. We're going to be ambitious. We're going to be engaged. We're going to be wanting to do something. The moon is now gaining light, right? The moon can now see things, is now illuminating something. And the problem is, though, is all of the planets that the moon's sextiling are all combust. Venus is underneath the beams. Jupiter's underneath the beams. Mercury pretty much is too at this point. So while the moon in Aries is like getting ideas, to kind of backtrack here, let's talk about all this Aquarius stuff. We had that new moon in Aquarius, right? All of this new stuff going on. We're trying to really reconfigure things. This moon in Aries is going, okay, now I know what that looks like. Now I know what to do with that. The problem is all these planets are combust, so it's like when you glance over the directions on building like IKEA furniture, you're like, oh, I got it. Or maybe not IKEA furniture because it's really simple, but like some intense, furniture build or whatever, and you just glance over the documents and you try to build it, and then you're like, wait, what did that just say? Like, is this supposed to go here? And then you have to kind of look through it a little bit harder to get through it. Again, I don't think Monday's bad. Monday's really good, I think, for getting shit done, being ambitious, being engaged, all of this new stuff that we're trying to create. This is the time to start laying it out. However, just don't expect to read the directions, or don't expect to be able to build the piece of furniture the correct way when you're just like glancing at the directions. It's not to say that you won't be able to build the project, but this is definitely going to take some time. Make sure you're looking at things clearly, even though you're going to be wanting to go really fast. But then we get into Tuesday. Tuesday's where it really gets important, because the moon at the later degrees of Aries, it'll separate from Venus. It's going to come up to the sun. Later on Tuesday night, the moon will ingress into Taurus and start making its way towards Uranus. So as the moon's at that end degrees of Aries, where we're feeling charged up, we're feeling ambitious, we're feeling engaged, the moon will go into Taurus, where I said this last night too, and I still I didn't get the time to look this up. I forgot. There's a traditional author that says this, or it actually might be a newer person. I don't remember. Someone says this, the fact of the moon being exalted in Taurus. It's exalted in Taurus because, of course, the moon goes really fast, and when the moon can slow down, it could absorb much more of its energy, right? So when the moon's in Taurus, it's slowing down, it can absorb things a little bit easier, so it can feel more nourished, it can feel more energized and ready to go forward. With the moon going from the last degrees of Aries going into Taurus, there is this kind of a slowdown, but it's much more of like, what do I have? What do I need? It's kind of like, if you're in a rush for your day, but you got to go to the grocery store, like you try not to rush the grocery store too much because you want to make sure you get everything. You don't want to like forget something, then have to go back, and then it ruins your dishes. So it's just like taking your time with it, right? The moon part of Tuesday really isn't, of course, the big deal. The really big deal, of course, is going to be the Saturn-Uranus square. That's happening on Tuesday. Of course, the moon's going to be a little bit influenced by that, though. The way I've been looking at the Saturn-Uranus square is if you are on, well, I'm struggling between like a car or like even just a platform. But I'm looking at Saturn on top of Uranus being like, have you ever seen those videos of people? It's like a fun video and someone's like on top of a car and they're like, wee, and they like jump and like the windshield breaks or like the roof collapse, and it's like, well, no fucking shit that was gonna happen. That's kind of like this Saturn-Uranus square. Now, when we talk about destabilizing stuff, things, I mean, like with the Saturn-Uranus square, it'd be so much different if it was just Saturn and Aquarius squaring just Uranus and Taurus, but we've had all of these fucking planets in here for quite some time. This is not something we didn't expect. When you hold, like, for example, an elevator over its weight capacity, don't be surprised when it falls down. However, how exactly that's going to look, that's what I'm a little uncertain of, because I think with Saturn in Aquarius, there's this, there's this new wave that we're trying to do things. There's also Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn's our limitations, right? Saturn's the greater malefic for a reason. We could feel like we're boxed or trapped into a certain way of thinking, a certain way of operating, a certain way of going with things, right? And Saturn square Uranus, the one thing I've been trying to say too is, like, again, you can't lead a horse. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. You can't force this fixed sign stuff. The scary part was when you force things down, you're only going to get an equal and opposite reaction to that. I think that Saturn squaring Uranus, much more in the mundane thing as far as society goes. We've all been kind of on edge for a lot of things, and I think that you'll probably see some, of course, upbursts, some anger. I don't think the stock market might crash, but I think it might just be more volatile than anything. But I think the main issue with all the things that you'll see on Tuesday is that we are putting way too much weight on something that can't hold that. And we're counting on Uranus and Taurus to hold all of this weight, but it just can't. So, I don't necessarily think it's like you're going to get hurt or anything, but I think you're really going to see, like, this is, again, when I've made the analogy about Uranus and Taurus being about icebergs melting. I made a video about that in 2018. And the way I would look at Saturn in Aquarius on top of Uranus and Taurus is like, you're walking on thin ice and that shit just cracked. So you've got two options, realistically. One, you can sit there and pretty much just sink and guarantee death, or you can run. You can, I don't trust, if I was on a sheet of ice and it cracked, I truly don't know what I would do, and I'd probably just fall and die. But with Saturn squaring Uranus, that ice is gonna crack. Now, if you're smart, you've noticed that the ice was a little thin, and so you've been backing away more and more lately. But I think with Saturn squaring Uranus, there's this, this is kind of like an oh shit moment, like it's about to go down. So technically, the Saturn-Uranus square doesn't happen, happens overnight. Actually, it'll happen exactly on Wednesday morning now that I'm kind of looking at it. But on Tuesday, as the moon goes into Taurus, and there's that Saturn Uranus thing, this is very much like grab what you can, bring your resource, or grab what you can because shit's about to go down. And I don't necessarily look at this as like, I'm not trying to be like a fearmonger or anything like that. I don't think this is going to be like one of those, like a COVID necessarily situation, but I do think that as far as like your personal lives go, this definitely looks like, you know, if you've been beating a dead horse, if you've just been doing the same thing over and over, I think you're going to see the faults really come up. And I think that's going to be scary. I think that's going to cause some fear. I think that's going to, but I think that's also going to really make this Mercury retrograde kind of come into picture and go, okay, what needs to be done differently? Excuse me. As we go into Wednesday though, let's go into Wednesday. We still have the Saturn-Uranus square. Of course, this is when the moon conjoins Uranus and the Saturn square goes exact. Tuesday is going to feel like, again, Tuesday is going to feel like the glass is, you know, or not the glass, the ice is cracking. The ice is, you know, spider webbing essentially. And then we go into Wednesday and, oh, my bad. I meant to say, I was reading Wednesday's horoscope when I talked about yesterday. Yesterday, for Tuesday, the moon just only goes into Taurus. That's it. But Wednesday, my bad. I was on my paper. I thought I was talking about Tuesday. I meant to talk about Wednesday. Anyway, Saturn Uranus square, moon conjoining Uranus. Look at this. Like, it doesn't take, like, here, let me actually help you guys since this is, let's take off. Let's just do that. Look, Saturn square moon on Uranus. My opinion, that's very, you know, okay. There's going to be an exact moment where shit goes down, you know. There's I can't think of the phrase. There's some phrase for like in science where it's like where something meets like a stress point, and then it's like the point where something is like max stress to where it then breaks. I forgot what it's called. But that's this point. And this is moon on Taurus conjoining Uranus. Like with the moon on Taurus, or with the moon in Taurus on Uranus, this is so like where we want to feel comfortable, where, you know, have you ever like just like try to ignore all of life's problems and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna fucking enjoy like my food or my TV show and just check out, but it's just like something just won't fucking let you, and so you just kind of like snap, and then you just like go, okay, what the fuck do I gotta take care of? Like you're now uncomfortable, you don't want to do any of this, but you're gonna fucking do it anyway, and you're gonna throw a fit about it because you don't want to do it. That's kind of like this moon in Taurus squaring Saturn and Aquarius. You know, fixed signs don't budge. And what's like what I kind of get frustrated with seeing this stuff is like where like there is no bringing things together when you have two fixed signs squaring. Like there is no, hey, let's work this out. This is two parties that are going to not back down on their sides because they're being, you know, because there's contention. So I think with the moon on top of Uranus squaring Saturn, this is very much like, of course, this is destabilizing. I think, of course, this is going to literally what you're used to being grounded with. I think that's the most important thing with Taurus. Like what we're used to having a solid foundation with is going to feel slippery. And Saturn and Aquarius is, it's very much, it's not that so much maybe the ground itself has changed, but what we learned about the ground has changed, if that makes sense. Where it's maybe you're on the ground and the ground's fine, but then you learn that there's like a chemical that slowly, you know, gives you cancer if you step on the ground with bare shoes or something like that. It's like nothing about it actually changed. We just learned something. We just realized something. And I think with the Saturn-Uranus square, this is going to be a time where, you know, I don't think that's an easy feeling. I don't know about you guys, but if I was on top of ice that started cracking, my heart would just completely drop, and I would just go straight into like visualizing all of my memories. Like I would just go straight into death mode. So I bring this up because it's going to feel uncomfortable. It is going to feel scary. My best advice though is, I don't want to say just go with it. It's pretty much get as comfortable as you can. Like, you know, when they say in a plane wreck, they're like, oh, put your head down in the seat and protect yourself. If you're in a fucking plane crash, for one, if you put your head down, that will push your head against like the back of the other person's chair and snap your neck, and they don't have to pay for your injuries if you're super injured in a plane wreck. That's why they make you do that. So for one, it's bullshit. But two, I also say, like, if you're in a fucking plane, if your plane's going down, like, I mean, you're probably going to try to get as comfortable and safe as you probably can regardless, even though it's not going to do anything. And I think that's, I don't want to say, like, oh, it's not going to do anything. Like, oh, you're going to try to get prepared and there's no hope. But, like, I guess in a plane crash, the only thing you can do is get yourself comfortable, be as comfortable as you can be. And get through it. But I do think this is going to be much more, it's Saturn, Uranus. The people who have, like, Saturn as their Time Lord, and the people that are, that have Saturn as mostly their Time Lord, or even like the moon, I think we'll feel it more than anyone else, and I think you'll see it much more in the news than anything. But I think this is where things, we've been walking on thin ice for a while. Anyway. Wednesday's when that ice breaks. Oh, and then of course, on Thursday, the sun just goes into Pisces as the moon conjoins Mars and makes that square to Venus. So we get into Pisces season. God, Pisces season's so weird. I talk a lot about Pisces season being weird throughout my YouTube. As the sun goes into Pisces, though, this is really a weird time. Pisces is really like blending things together. Pisces is like what happens when you push everything together, when there are like Pisces. I always like to think of Pisces as like Minecraft. I don't really play video games, but everyone should know what Minecraft is by now. But Minecraft, it's like a game that there's no like rules or there's a setting to where at least there's no rules and that you can just kind of live in this open land and do whatever you want and be creative. You have all these abundance of natural resources to build from. That's kind of like when the sun's in Pisces. It's not necessarily like the point is that there is no point. Like the point is for you to vibe. The point is for you to just like reflect, right? Just like in Sag season. In Sag season, the journey is the destination, right? In Pisces season, like, we're already here. Like, now what, right? It's like, what do you do with that? Once you get to your goal, what happens next? Is that transition point from where, you kind of deal with all this new stuff and integrate yourself into it, which one of Jupiter's natural significations is integration. So I think with the sun going into Pisces, this is a time of literally starting to integrate now. As the sun's going into Pisces, this is going like, okay, things are mixing up pretty well. And you'll see that also, too, once Venus goes into Pisces and Mercury goes into Pisces, all that stuff. The moon's going to be conjoining Mars, though, squaring Venus. So the only stipulation I have against this is the moon conjoining Mars is, things are going to be moving slow and we don't want them to move slow. Moon's going to be squaring Venus. Like, things are going to be moving slow and they're not going to look the way that we want it to. And again, there's going to be this uncomfortability of like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this, even though I don't actually want to do this at all. It's so funny now that I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, that's me moving, because I gotta move, and you guys can't see anything, but clearly, there's this. Nothing's packed in my house, and I have to leave in like 2 weeks. I don't want to do any of this shit. I'm looking at this day like, oh god, this is when I'm gonna have to face the music and just get my fucking house cleaned. But this is, again, I think, going really slow at something. Venus is here in Aquarius, where there's this, Venus is valuing, we're enjoying this new way of looking at things, but clearly, we can't make these changes very fast. I don't know. I just downloaded Big Sur onto my Mac last night, and it took like a long ass time. And that's how exactly I would describe this. It's like, if you want to reboot and make your computer nicer and download that fresh software, it's going to take some time. It's a big ass file. So you just got to be patient and go with the flow. Then we get to Friday. Hold on, I need some water. We get into Friday. That's when the moon enters Gemini and Venus squares Mars. Now, this Venus-Mars square is so peculiar. Venus is in the superior position, of course, so Venus has kind of the ultimate authority, but Venus is combust, so, what good is she at the moment? Mars, the way to look at this is almost like Venus is upset at Mars, because Mars is in Venus's house, but Venus won't tell Mars what exactly she's upset with. Mars is like, okay, you're mad, but at what? And Venus is like, I don't know. So it's like, well, what's the issue here? I think with Venus and Aquarius, there's something new that we're doing. There's something, and we're enjoying this, right? Like, we're legitimately trying to have a good time, right? But I think as Venus is underneath the beams of the sun, there's this. It's like something's not right about it. Something isn't what we expected. Maybe something isn't exactly what we wanted. And I think as Venus squares Mars, it's like maybe we're not moving, like I talked about last week, things move slow for a reason. And you should be like grateful that those things will move slow. But I look at this Venus square Mars as like, maybe we're moving slow because this isn't not, I don't want to say this isn't what we want, but I would say that Venus squaring Mars is, we're moving slow because this isn't exactly the taste that we want. We're not actually enjoying it as much as we told ourselves that we did. And I think with Venus squaring Mars, it's like you're not going to actually want to do it unless you like it, unless you want it, unless you actually value it, unless you actually get something enjoyable out of it. And so there's this kind of a weird confrontation where you're kind of like, okay, I have to change my attitude. I think a big thing too is, it's so funny. I just think in the spiritual community, we talk, it's so, a lot of people just blame everything else except, themselves. And a lot of our reality is literally shaped off our attitude and our beliefs. Literal science. So I think when you get this type of fixed square stuff, it is very much a check your attitude type time. This is like Mars and Taurus is very stubborn. Mars and Taurus is not going to go anywhere fast. Mars and Taurus will go at its own fucking pace. So I think it's important to not get so locked into that mindset and be a little bit more open. I think as the moon goes into Gemini, that helps with it, because as the moon's in Gemini, it'll start trining Saturn, and then tomorrow it'll get to Mercury and Jupiter. But as the moon goes into Gemini, at least we can be more open about our ideas, think things through a little bit more, be a little bit more curious as to finding solutions to our problems. Then we get to Saturday. And then on Saturday, the moon, of course, is going to make this trine to Mercury. Whoops. And then the moon's going to trine Jupiter. And then it's going to trine, or it's actually then going to conjoin the North Node. Man, excuse me. My camera's all messed up. This is like the most Mercury retrograde video I've had. Of course, I drip water all over me. God, I'm a fucking wreck right now. Gosh, excuse me. Anyway, holy shit. The moon's going to trine Mercury, trine Jupiter. This is where, with the moon in Gemini, our curiosity, our inquisitiveness, our sense of questioning, right? This is where we start getting answers. And I think the moon starting to make its way towards the North Node is like wanting those answers, asking those questions. As the moon trines Mercury on top of Jupiter, though, these answers are like, I don't think you're going to get the wrong answer, but I don't necessarily think you're going to get the answer that you're expecting. And I think it's going to kind of, again, force you to change your mind, change your opinion on some things. I do think with all this Aquarius stuff, there's no way that we can go through all this without our opinions, our ideas, or even some of our virtues changing. So also, what's important about Saturday, though, is Mercury stations direct. And here, let me fast forward this for you guys. So Mercury actually doesn't station direct until, right, there we go, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is, of course, when the moon's fucking, like, on the node, like, right past Jupiter. Now is Mercury stationing, now that Mercury is direct. Over these past, Mercury entered shadow, like, January 18th, I think, like pretty much, a lifetime ago. And now that Mercury entered shadow, Mercury came up, stationed retrograde, came back, conjoined the sun, then conjoined Venus, then conjoined Jupiter, is now stationing direct. The way I would look at this is there was something that we knew that was coming that we wanted to do. We changed it up. Mercury likes to play games, of course, so we didn't get there the way that we expected to. And then Mercury comes back onto Venus and Jupiter. There's some type of resolution that's made. There's some type of peace that's made. Now, peace is a very interesting word. I don't look at it as shaking hands peace, but I look at this as much more of an agreement. And I think with Mercury on top of Jupiter stationing direct on the Saturday, this is very much like, you know what? What does moving forward look like? What did I learn through this whole process? What did I gain? What did I lose? And now what do I have to face again? With Mercury stationing direct, technology problems will be pretty much done, but you'll be facing a lot of, basically Mercury retrogrades were a time to pause, reflect, and review. And now that we're done reflecting and reviewing, now it's time to actually do those things. The problem is this is our third time doing it. So like, you might be a little bit more frustrated going back into it. You'll be a little bit more aware going into it this time. It could be a little bit frustrating because it will be the third time, but at least at this point, Mars will be getting out of Taurus and Mercury won't be squaring Mars for the rest of the time in Aquarius. However, there's a crazy Mercury-Mars square in Gemini and Pisces, just so you know, just so you don't have hope. But as Saturday is Mercury stations direct, I think this is where things kind of hit us, and we're kind of like, okay, now I see where things are moving clearly. Mercury plays games, and that's what Mercury retrogrades are all about. Playing tricks, deceiving us, having fun. And we can laugh. I think it's important to laugh it off. I think especially right now, God, people are taking shit so seriously right now, and it's like, holy fuck, like we've got to lighten up, and we have the world is way too fucking depressed right now to be so fucking serious about everything. We've got to start lighting up. But as Mercury stations direct, I think that's where that's where you kind of realize, like, oh, Mercury was just fucking with me the whole time. Like, that wasn't anything crazy. It was just Mercury fucking with me, because that's what Mercury retrogrades do. But anyway, so Saturday things move forward, right? And then on Sunday, of course, let's go back. On Sunday, that's when we're going to have the moon at the later degrees of Gemini. It'll enter Cancer, and then we're going to have the moon making that trine to Venus. So, of course, this looks good for connecting, conversation. I mean, moon trine Venus, like, hey, go crazy. With the moon and Gemini trining Venus and Aquarius, talk it out, connect with someone, have a conversation. Sunday's astrology really isn't all that crazy. Sunday's really nice. Next week, and I'm kind of jumping ahead real quick, but I just wanted to say next week, Venus enters Pisces, and there's a full moon in Virgo. Now, like I said, this is kind of like the last crazy week, and I think you're going to see again that ice kind of crack, and it's going to be kind of scary, and you're going to go, okay, I really do need to do something different at this point. But as Mercury stations direct and moves forward, there's a weird kind of ending that we're going through, where there's no there's no closure per se. Not to say that this time or this era needs closure. I think, though, that we'll be moving on in such a weird, casual way that it's going to feel a little bit funky. And I think, something I reflect a lot on. I mean, I'm an astrologer. My job's to reflect on what time meant. And I will say I reflect a lot on years that go by and, like, how much I thought I knew what I knew what I was going through at that moment. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, I was actually going through something completely different. It's not how I interpret it. It looked different when you're in it versus when you're out of it. And so I think with this week, as things kind of die down, and that's not to say that, like, as we go through March and April, like, Mars will go through Gemini in the North Node. That's going to be really fun, and there's plenty of stuff to go along. Life's not going to get boring per se, but just all of the fucking madness that we've been dealing with basically since about March of last year, because that's when Saturn entered Aquarius with Mars. And then after that, we didn't get a break, because immediately after that, we had the Venus retrograde squaring Neptune and on top of the nodes with eclipses, and we got that. And then immediately after that, we went straight into Mars retrograde squaring Saturn for 6 months. And then we got January of all this Aquarius stuff. And now, when it's kind of like, I made this analogy with a few of my clients, so some of you guys might know this. But have you ever seen Captain Phillips? And if you've seen Captain Phillips, the scene at the end where he's, like, in the boat, there's no spoilers. I'm going to spoil it for you, but it's not that crazy. Anyway, at the end of Captain Phillips, he's in this boat. The snipers shoot all of the pirates that kidnap him. And Tom Hanks is just, like, fucked up. He's just, like, processing all this trauma he just went through, doesn't know what to make up of it. And the last, like, 10 minutes of the movie are just, like, watching Tom Hanks, like, have a mental breakdown. It's, like, it's kind of fucked up. But the way I bring that up is, like, you really see, like, throughout the whole movie of Captain Phillips, like, Tom Hanks is really cool, he's really mature, like, he's handling it like a boss. And then it's like right when it ends, he just fucking loses it, because he knows that it's over now. And so that's how I would almost interpret this week. Like, I'm not gonna say, oh, you're gonna lose it because it's over now, but when things end, when that Saturn Uranus, when that levee breaks, when it finally goes, right, there's that release. There's that knowing that it's been done at this point. So I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is after this week, it's not necessarily like, oh, you can calm down. Things are actually going to be, like, ramping more. Once Mars goes into Gemini, we'll have more energy. We'll be doing more stuff, but it won't be so heavy. I don't think it's going to be as serious. It's going to be much more like, you know, fun in some light. But I think it's going to kind of hit us what these past, like, and honestly, what this whole past year was like for us, but mostly also too, like, I would really challenge you guys to go back to when Mars was squaring, when Mars first, and I mean, for me personally, me and my life, oh my God, the difference between June and July to now, I mean, like, I thought I changed a lot throughout the other years, but like, God fucking damn, bro, like, that was 6 or 7 months. That was a lot to experience and deal with. And now that we're done with it, we kind of have to deal with the impact of that. And so I think it's going to just be important this week to reflect on the past and what it has got you to this moment. Not to get stuck in the past, but I think that there's not a path forward. There's a prairie forward. There's no one path that you're just on. There's I don't want to say your path just ended, right? When you're on a prairie, sure, there's a path there, but it's arbitrary. You can kind of walk, well, any direction that you kind of want to. That's the way I would kind of look at moving forward. It's like, you just went through the jungle, you just went through a bunch of stuff. Now things are really opening up. Now you can kind of have that peace, but then you can also go, God damn, that was crazy. Not that you haven't already been doing that before, but that's this week. This week is really kind of the last big week. After this week, Venus enters Pisces. We have the full moon in Virgo next week, which is just a great wrap up to February. Like, I think we'll really enjoy this full moon and Venus going into Pisces next week. And then, then we're off to the races with March. March, we've got Venus and Pisces all month. And then, at the end of it, we've got the Venus Cazimi. We got Mars in Gemini. Things really, I think, get fun after this in some perspective. This was just very uncomfortable and awkward. Again, everyone just thinks the Aquarius stuff is very kumbaya energy. And I want to remind people, every planet is in Saturn's house, and Saturn's in Saturn's house. This is like eating dinner with like the prison ward, and you're like, I guess I have to be good because I don't want to be in trouble. But anyway, that's what I got for you guys. That's this week. I don't want to say this week really isn't that crazy. There's not a lot of transits happening, but it's just really that Saturn, Uranus square, Mercury stationing direct, and Venus squaring Mars. The Venus square Mars too will be a little bit weird, but anyway, with that being said, I love every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.